my goodness. We left at a great, exciting part. Just when Lulu thought she found her brontosaurus to be her pet, the brontosaurus says, no, no, no. What does he say? Lulu's going to be his pet. What do you think Lulu's going to do? Let's find out. Chapter 10. Lulu's eyes were two round O's of amazement. She tried to speak, but at first no words came out. And then finally she was able to say, in a squeaky, amazed kind of voice, I don't think I heard what I think I just heard, Mr. B. She called him Mr. B for Mr. Brontosaurus. Oh, you did indeed, the Brontosaurus replied. Well, if I did, Lulu's voice was back to being its old bossy self. Well, if I did, I've got some news for you. A person has a pet. An animal is a pet. A person can't be an animal's pet. Ever. Look at her eyes. And I have some news for you, the Brontosaurus said to Lulu, except that he speaks much more politely than Lulu. You're about to be the first person ever to be an animal's pet. Congratulations, and once again, happy birthday. He reached out a hand, or whatever you want to call it, and gently scooped Lulu up off the forest floor. And then he plucked her gently down where his back met his neck. Hold on tight, little pet, he said to Lulu. I'll pull off some leaves from the top of the trees for your breakfast. And then I'm taking you home to live with me. No, yelled Lulu. No, no, no. A billion zillion times no. Yes, 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 the Brontosaurus replied. I'll feed you and pat you and play with you and treat you very nicely. And all I expect from you is to sit and roll over and fetch a ball and do cute things. What did he think she was? Some kind of a dog girl? I really don't know. I can't read a dinosaur's mind. Lulu thought about screeching and throwing herself on the forest floor, except that the forest floor was a long way down. She thought about squeezing the dinosaur dead, except that she needed both hands to hold onto his neck. She thought about swinging her suitcase and bonking him on the head, except that she'd left her suitcase under the tree. Does this sound familiar? Didn't she squeeze the snake? And didn't she bonk the tiger? And then she did something to the bear. And she couldn't stomp on his foot because his feet were too far down from his back. Then Lulu started to think that the whole thing farther from where the Brontosaurus had plucked her was her home. Her home where her mom and her dad were waiting. Her very own home where no one, not even when she was being a pain, which was most of the time, had ever expected her to sit and roll over and fetch and do tricks. I want to go home to my house, Lulu told the Brontosaurus, then added in a lot less bossier tone, please let me go back to my house, Mr. B. This was maybe the very first time of Lulu's entire life that she, without being asked, had used the P word. And yet the Brontosaurus shook his head. No. Once you get used to it, he kindly told Lulu, I truly believe that you'll like being a pet. Lulu imagined being a pet in the house of this Brontosaurus and never seeing her mom and her dad again. She imagined eating leaves and doing cute tricks. And she said to herself that if only she could turn today into yesterday, she wouldn't go looking for dinosaurs in the forest. And she wouldn't say food to you, to her mom and her dad. She was feeling especially sorry that she had ever said foo on you to her mom and her dad. Chapter 11. The brontosaurus pulled leaves off the trees and was offering them to Lulu. She grabbed them and threw them angrily away. "A simple no thank you will do," the brontosaurus said to Lulu. "And I really liked that please you used before." "So please, 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 please let me go home," yelled Lulu. "Your yelling is hurting my ears," said the dinosaur. "But I have to admit that even if you had asked me softly and sweetly, I still would want to keep you here with me. I've been lonely, and a pet is a very good thing." For hours and hours and hours, from early morning till just past noon, Lulu kept telling the brontosaurus he had to let her go home, and the brontosaurus kept telling Lulu no. He also kept assuring her that he'd do his absolute best to make her happy. He spoke in such a kind and nice and polite and patient voice that after a while Lulu was actually talking and not yelling. And after a while she was talking softly and sweetly. And pretty soon after that, she started to cry. Yes, Lulu started to cry. And it wasn't very often that Lulu cried. She'd rather screech till all the light bulbs burst and all the other stuff, but right now she didn't feel screechy. She felt teary. And so she cried and cried and cried, soaking the brontosaurus with her tears. Do you feel sorry for Lulu even though she was a brat? I do. I don't like feeling anybody cry. And she is learning lessons. I think she's starting to say please. He patiently waited as Lulu continued soaking him and the forest floor with her tears. He patiently waited some more and then he said, "I'm sorry I'm making you cry, little pet, but I won't be changing my mind. Would you like a tissue?" Lulu now understood that no matter how hard she cried and how nice this dinosaur was, he was determined to keep her as his pet. And now she understood that if she was determined to not be his pet, there was only one thing she could do. She would have to escape. She cried just a little bit longer, but while she was crying on the outside, she was inside making a getaway plan. Sniffing a watery sniff, Lulu said to the brontosaurus, "Thank you, Mr. B. I do need some tissues. If you'll just let me down on the forest floor for a minute, I'm sure I can find a box of tissues in my suitcase." The brontosaurus lowered his head and his neck to the floor of the forest. Lulu slid off, stood up, and smiled a small smile. She walked to her suitcase, opened it, poked around for a while, and found, are you surprised? A big box of tissues. But instead of taking the tissues out, she put her sleeping bag in, snapped her suitcase shut, and started running. The brontosaurus stood stiff and still, as if he'd been glued to the ground. But Lulu had darted off the path into the heart of the forest, into the part of the forest where the trees grew so close together that a creature as huge as a dinosaur could not fit. She zigged and she zagged and she zigged and she zagged through those close together trees while the brontosaurus was looking for spaces to squeeze through. Will the brontosaurus catch her? Will Lulu make it home with her mom and her dad? Do her mom and her dad even realize that she's gone, or are they still eating cookies? Come back next time. Bye.